The human social structure is often imagined as a towering pyramid, a rigid hierarchy of influence and authority where visibility and volume are mistaken for true power. From an early age, we are conditioned to applaud and admire the alpha archetype, the commanding CEO at the head of the boardroom table, the charismatic politician who rallies the masses, the dominant presence who exudes authority wherever he stands. Society places these figures on a pedestal, equating outward dominance with leadership, and assuming that those who speak the loudest must also be the most powerful. Yet, existing quietly within the same social landscape is a figure far more elusive, a man who does not conform to the conventional blueprint of leadership, but embodies its essence in an unconventional way: the Sigma male. Unlike the Alpha, the Sigma does not seek visibility, nor does he crave recognition. He carries within him all the innate qualities of a leader: strategic intelligence, unwavering self-confidence, and an undeniable aura that draws others toward him. Yet he deliberately steps away from the limelight. His refusal to assume the official mantle of leadership is not a weakness, nor is it the result of fear or inability. Instead, it is a deeply intentional decision, a rejection of performative nature authority as society defines it. The Sigma knows he has the capacity to command, but he does not tether his identity to the validation that comes with title or position. This paradox unsettles and confuses those looking from the outside. How can a man so capable, so clearly cut from the fabric of leadership, turn away from the very structures designed for individuals like him? To many, it seems contradictory. The idea that the most qualified to lead would be the one least interested in doing so. And yet, it is precisely this contradiction that defines the Sigma archetype. His power lies not in ruling from above, but in shaping the world from the edges, influencing without demanding acknowledgement, and guiding without ever needing to be seen as a guide. What follows is a deeper exploration into this enigma, an unraveling of the 8 core reasons why the Sigma male, though equipped with a natural instinct of a leader, chooses a path of solitude and self-determination. It is an examination of how he exerts influence not from the throne, but from the shadows, where freedom, authenticity, and independence matter more than titles, applause, or authority. 1. The sanctity of autonomy, an uncompromising valuation of personal freedom over institutional power. At the very heart of the Sigma male's identity lies a principle so deeply ingrained that it becomes the axis upon which his entire existence revolves: autonomy. For him, personal freedom is not just an attractive notion or an idealistic aspiration. It is a lifeblood that sustains the spirit. Without it, he suffocates. This freedom manifests in multiple dimensions. It is the freedom of thought, unshackled from dogma, herd mentality, or societal scripts that dictate what a man should think. It is the freedom of movement, allowing him to drift away from rigid schedules, unnecessary gatherings, and meaningless appearances. It is the freedom of time, where every hour is invested into endeavors that hold genuine personal value, rather than being drained by bureaucratic obligations. Ultimately, it is the freedom of self, the sacred right to write his own life story without interference, compromise, or external authorship. Traditional leadership, in the Sigma male's eyes, represents a polar opposite of this sanctity of freedom. To him, accepting a formal title or position of power is not an elevation but a transaction, a trade of liberty for status, a gilded cage disguised as success. The title comes burdened with endless strings, suffocating meetings, constant stakeholder scrutiny, tedious social obligations, and the slow erosion of individuality as one becomes less a person and more a representative of an institution. The Sigma observes this life and sees not empowerment but servitude, a leader who is in truth imprisoned by the very role he is celebrated for. To the Sigma, the most tragic irony is a man who gains the world's recognition but loses his own independence in the process. Yet, this rejection of conventional authority is not laziness nor cowardice. On the contrary, the Sigma male is highly responsible, only as responsibility points inward rather than outward. His loyalty is to his own principles, his own vision, and the personal mission he has carefully constructed for himself. He accepts responsibility when it aligns with his values, and discards it when it represents nothing more than imposed duty. The idea of trading his freedom to live spontaneously, whether that means retreating into solitude for reflection, chasing an unexpected burst of creativity, or simply existing without obligation for the promise of a title, applause, or a higher income is, to him, absurd. Leadership, in his mind, should not be the surrender of freedom but its greatest expression. And so he leads, but only on his own terms, by creating, by innovating, and by inspiring quietly, without ever allowing himself to be shackled by the very structures he instinctively distrusts. 2. The aversion to micromanagement, the intolerable burden of oversight and being overseen. If there is one element of conventional leadership that grates against every fiber of the Sigma male's being, it is the culture of micromanagement. To him, this practice is not just inconvenient, but outright toxic, representing a fundamental breakdown of trust and an insult to competence. His disdain operates on 2 levels. He cannot tolerate being micromanaged, nor can he bring himself to micromanage others. Both sides of the equation are equally draining, equally unappealing, and equally incompatible with his nature. From his perspective, micromanagement is a defining characteristic of dysfunctional systems. It assumes incompetence where there should be trust, replacing independence with constant monitoring, correction, and validation. The Sigma male operates from a foundation of radical self-sufficiency. He expects of himself and others the ability to function without hand-holding. When he delegates, he does so out of genuine trust in someone's ability to deliver. To then hover over them with checklists, interruptions, and repetitive oversight feels to him like an erosion of respect, reducing adults to children in need of supervision. In his eyes, it is nothing short of glorified babysitting, a colossal waste of energy. The reverse situation, where he himself is micromanaged, is even worse. The Sigma male's mind is a labyrinth of unconventional solutions and intuitive leaps. His process is not linear, and his methods rarely conform to standard playbooks. To be forced into a cycle of explanations, approvals, and permissions feels like a direct assault on his intelligence. It smothers his creativity, disrupts his rhythm, and reduces his momentum to rubble. For a man who thrives on independence, such constant oversight feels not merely irritating but demeaning, leaving him mentally drained and internally rebellious. This is why the traditional leadership track, with its built-in expectation of oversight and people management, holds little appeal for him. He has no interest in poring over timesheets, fielding progress reports, or settling petty workplace disputes. His philosophy is simple: provide clarity of vision, grant the necessary tools, and then allow people to succeed or fail on their own merit. This macro-guiding approach is rare in formal institutions, which are built on structures of constant reporting and layered accountability. Rather than compromise his principles to fit into such a mold, the Sigma male simply removes himself from the structure altogether. He would rather operate independently or within a very small circle of highly capable, self-directed individuals than carry the unbearable burden of micromanaging others or being micromanaged himself. 3. The burden of misinterpretation when unconventional methods are mistaken for defiance. The Sigma male's mind is a machine that rarely runs on conventional fuel. His way of thinking is not straight-lined, nor is it easily categorized into neat formulas or step-by-step procedures. Instead, his cognition operates laterally, weaving connections where others see barriers, identifying shortcuts where others see dead ends, and dismantling rigid structures that others cling to as sacred. He is a systems thinker, one who instinctively deconstructs complexity to reveal the most elegant, efficient, and often startlingly simple solutions. This intellectual agility is, in truth, his greatest strength. Yet, paradoxically, when placed within the rigid frameworks of social or professional structures, it often becomes his greatest liability. What he perceives as pure pragmatism and efficiency, others often misinterpret as rebellion or arrogance. To those accustomed to conventional routes, his refusal to walk the expected path is unsettling. Where the average person sees only a single line from point A to point B, the Sigma perceives an intricate network of interconnected possibilities. Yet when he acts upon this vision, bypassing unnecessary steps or outdated procedures, superiors often view it not as innovation, but as insubordination. His quiet focus, which is in truth an immersion in deep concentration, may be mistaken for aloofness or antisocial tendencies. His refusal to indulge in small talk, gossip, or empty gestures of office politics often casts him as cold, condescending, or deliberately detached. If he were to assume a formal leadership position, these misunderstandings would magnify under the harsh lens of scrutiny. Every deviation from protocol, every quiet moment of contemplation, every solution that defied convention would require lengthy explanations to those ill-equipped to understand his reasoning. Leadership would force him into a constant state of translation, decoding his own thought process for the comfort of others, defending decisions that were self-evident to him, and justifying choices to people more invested in tradition than in progress. To the Sigma male, this represents not only an insult to his intelligence, but a catastrophic waste of energy. His creativity thrives in motion, not in the endless drag of explaining himself to minds trapped within boxes he dismantled long ago. For this reason, the Sigma prefers to operate outside the spotlight. By remaining on the periphery, he grants himself the freedom to think and act without constantly appeasing the misconceptions of others. He chooses silent victories over visible validation. His aim is not to be applauded for his process, but to achieve results that speak for themselves. This is not a retreat from responsibility. It is a retreat from the exhausting theater of perception management. He would rather build quietly and let the outcome stand as proof than waste half his energy explaining the brilliance of a method no one else has the tools to see. For the philosophy of singular accountability, the refusal to bear the weight of others' failures, running just as deeply as his hunger for freedom, is the Sigma male's philosophy of accountability. For him, personal responsibility is not negotiable. It is sacred. He views life through the lens of individual ownership. Every choice made, every action taken, every mistake committed belongs to the individual who created it. He demands this of himself without exception, and he instinctively expects of others. This belief shapes his entire worldview and dictates the way he interacts with people, projects, and systems. Yet, traditional leadership positions stand in direct opposition to this principle. By design, a leader is held accountable not only for their own decisions, but also for the failures, mistakes, and negligence of their subordinates. In the Sigma's eyes, this is not leadership, but injustice, a distortion of natural law. Why, he asks, should one person absorb the consequences of another's incompetence? Why should his reputation, his career, or his progress be compromised because someone else failed to uphold their end of responsibility? To him, it is a grotesque inversion of fairness, where effort is diluted and accountability is blurred. This dynamic feels less like leadership and more like martyrdom, a leader condemned to absorb the failures of the weakest link in their chain. To the Sigma male, such a role is intolerable. He has no interest in cleaning up after laziness, rescuing those who ignore clear instructions, or smoothing over reputational damage caused by another's carelessness. His principles allow for mentorship, for guidance, and for the fair provision of tools and opportunities. But once given, the responsibility rests solely with the individual. To demand that he shoulder the burden of others' mistakes is, to him, an insult to logic and to justice itself. This refusal to carry others' failures is not an escape from responsibility. It is a deeper commitment to integrity. The Sigma male is prepared to carry the full weight of his own mistakes, no matter how heavy they may be. He will accept consequences with quiet stoicism when the failure is his own, never deflecting blame or seeking excuses. But his shoulders are not open to the failures of others, for do so would compromise the purity of his philosophy. Instead, he seeks or builds environments where accountability is clear, where ownership is direct, and where consequences fall squarely where they belong. Since such environments are rare, he often designs his life to minimize his dependency on others. He chooses projects where he alone is responsible for the outcome, preferring solitude to the tangled compromises of team dynamics. If collaboration is necessary, he seeks out only the most self-sufficient and principled partners. In this way, he preserves the integrity of his vision, to live in a world where success and failure are not shared as burdens, but claimed as personal truths. He would rather stand alone, owning both triumph and disaster, than lead many and be shackled to failures that are not his own. 5. The immunity to status, the indifference to titles, pedigrees, and superficial authority. In a society obsessed with ladders, labels, and the ceaseless climb toward prestige, the Sigma male emerges as an anomaly, untouched by the fever of status. Where others chase after titles, scramble for promotions, or display symbols of wealth like armor, he remains unmoved. The golden trappings of conventional success, corner offices, luxury watches, Ivy League pedigrees, or high-profile connections, carry little to no meaning in his internal calculus. His perception of a person is never filtered through a resume, nor does he measure worth by position on an organizational chart. Instead, his judgment is rooted in substance, character, competence, and integrity. These qualities, invisible to the superficial eye, form the true criteria by which he evaluates others. This immunity to status grants him a quiet liberation, but also separates him from the majority, who derive their sense of worth from validation and external markers of success. He does not seek to impress the powerful, nor does he shrink before them. To him, a CEO and an intern both stand on equal ground until their actions reveal otherwise. He listens not to a title, but to the weight of the words spoken, observing whether they stem from wisdom or from empty bravado. Respect is never given by default. It must be earned painstakingly through consistent demonstration of ability and authenticity. Because of this worldview, the pursuit of traditional leadership roles seems to him illogical and even absurd. Why chase after a designation like vice president or director when those words are hollow, devoid of true value? A title on a business card cannot elevate his self-worth, for his identity is not constructed from external acknowledgement. The social reverence that comes with formal authority feels more like distraction than reward, a veneer that obscures the substance beneath. He understands that true influence operates independently of hierarchy. It is not manufactured by titles, but forged in trust, sharpened by expertise, and legitimized by silent competence. Influence is the ability to move people because they believe in your judgment, not because they are compelled by your authority. The Sigma male, therefore, would rather be the anonymous architect in the background, the technician whose input shapes every critical decision, than the public manager who issues orders out of obligation. He does not aspire to be admired for a position. He aspires to be respected for his insight. And since one does not need a crown to be influential, he sees no reason to fight for one. 6. The art of subtle influence, the strategic pulling of strings from shadows. The Sigma male's refusal of the spotlight should never be mistaken for insignificance. His rejection of formal leadership does not diminish his impact, it sharpens it. Where the Alpha thrives in visibility, the Sigma thrives in invisibility. His battlefield is not the stage, but the quiet corners of the room where observation and strategy unfold. He is a master of human dynamics, a silent manipulator of outcomes, a strategist who finds strength in anonymity. If the Alpha male charges forward like a warrior with sword in hand, the Sigma male remains in the war tent, eyes fixed on the map, moving pieces that determine the course of the entire battle. His influence is not exerted through overt command, but through subtler, more refined means. Well-placed suggestions that alter the direction of conversation, probing questions that reframe the way a problem is perceived, or the discreet passing of critical information at exactly the right moment. He understands leverage points in a way few do, the small hinges upon which great doors swing. With surgical precision, he applies pressure not to many, but to the few decisive points that alter the trajectory of the whole. Within organizations, this often translates into an unseen form of leadership. The official leader may stand at the podium, but the ideas they present, the strategies they pursue, and even the decisions they defend often originate from the Sigma male in the background. He becomes the advisor sought after in private, the confidant whose opinion quietly shapes outcomes. People turn to him not because they are obliged to, but because they trust that beneath his quiet demeanor lies rare insight. The Sigma never demands credit, nor does he chase acknowledgement. His satisfaction lies in seeing events unfold as he envisioned, even if the acclaim falls into someone else's lap. To the casual observer, the public figurehead receives all the praise. To the perceptive insider, the true architect is clear. This shadow leadership brings a Sigma male a sense of profound fulfillment. It allows him to deploy his natural strategic gifts to their fullest extent, while protecting the independence he values above all. By influencing from the periphery, he avoids the burden of public scrutiny, the demands of managing people, and the endless distractions of formal authority. He reaps the rewards of influence without paying the price of power. To him, this is the purest and most efficient expression of leadership, maximum impact with minimum exposure. It is control without chains, power without the prison of visibility. 7. The essence of authentic leadership. The conviction that true authority derives from character, not title. For the Sigma male, leadership is not a costume one wears, nor a title stamped onto a business card. In his worldview, true leadership is an essence, a state of being that emerges naturally from character, not from a position of employment. He holds a radical conviction that authority is never granted by hierarchy, but instead earned through integrity, competence, and presence. To him, the most profound demonstrations of leadership often occur in the smallest of moments, when an individual stands firm in the face of criticism, when someone holds on to an unpopular truth rather than bending to pressure, when resilience is quietly displayed in the wake of setbacks. Leadership, as the Sigma defines it, is lived, not proclaimed. He has seen enough to know that titles are no guarantee of genuine capability. In fact, he often views formal authority with suspicion, having encountered too many leaders who mask insecurity, narcissism, or incompetence behind prestigious title. The corner office or the commanding position does not disguise poor character. It amplifies it. By contrast, the Sigma has a deep and enduring respect for those who command influence without titles at all. The janitor who becomes the unspoken moral compass of a workplace, the intern whose ideas consistently prove innovative, the quiet family member who others instinctively turn to in crisis. These are the figures he recognizes as true leaders. They are proof to him that real authority is organic and that it grows out of who a person is rather than what position they occupy. Because of this belief, the pursuit of titles feels not only unnecessary to the Sigma, but counterproductive. Accepting a title feels to him like slipping into a mask, a performance that obscures the authentic self beneath. He refuses to play a role that reduces leadership to a performance rather than an expression of character. His version of leadership emerges instead through lived example. The calmness he brings to moments of chaos, the solutions he crafts that alter the trajectory of a project, the quiet standard of excellence he sets that others feel compelled to rise and match. For him, leadership is not about taking credit or assuming authority. It is about embodying a model worth following. To seek validation from formal titles would mean legitimizing a system he believes to be flawed, one that falsely equates rank with substance. He refuses to surrender his authenticity to such a framework. His authority is inward, self-earned, and unshakable. He knows that when leadership is grounded in character, it transcends circumstances, travels with him, and requires no external badge of recognition. In the Sigma's world, you do not become a leader because of what is printed beneath your name. You are a leader because you live in a way that others cannot help but respect. 8. The power of silent inspiration. Leading through example and empowering through autonomy. The Sigma male's highest expression of leadership does not manifest in commands or orders, but in the quiet, transformative power of example. His philosophy of influence rejects the idea of creating obedient followers. Instead, he aims to awaken autonomy in others, encouraging them to become stronger, more self-reliant, and more authentic versions of themselves. His method is not command and control, but exemplify and empower. He demonstrates this leadership not with words, but with unwavering consistency. In a world often quick to blame, complain, and fixate on uncontrollable circumstances, the Sigma male offers a living contrast. He does not waste energy railing against the economy, politics, or the weather. Instead, he focuses intently on what is within his control, moving steadily forward without noise or complaint. In moment of crisis, his calm presence becomes a quiet anchor for others, showing that panic is unnecessary and resilience is possible. His stoic ability to endure hardship without theatrics serves as an unspoken challenge to those around him. If he can maintain composure and momentum under pressure, why can't they? This silent example is profoundly empowering for those perceptive enough to notice. Without lecturing or criticizing, he demonstrates that strength need not be loud, that independence need not mean isolation, and that influence need not rely on domination. People watching him often experience a subtle but disorienting realization that the limits they believed in were, perhaps, self-imposed. His presence plants the seeds of self-reflection, nudging others toward growth without a single command. For the Sigma, this is the essence of true leadership. He leads not by demanding obedience, but by inspiring transformation. He trusts others enough to grant them autonomy, respecting their right to walk their own path while quietly modeling what authenticity and resilience look like in practice. His leadership does not echo through orders shouted across a room. It resonates through the ripple effect of individuals who, having observed him, begin to rise into their own strength. It is leadership without ego, without spectacle, and without chains, purely influence through inspiration. Conclusion: the paradox resolved, the unseen architect of influence. The Sigma male is not the opposite of a leader. He is the evolution of one. His rejection of the spotlight is not a flaw of ambition, but a deliberate, principled choice. He has no desire to sacrifice freedom for recognition, authenticity for performance, or strategy for spectacle. Instead, he embodies a deeper, more refined form of influence, one that exists beyond the narrow definitions of traditional leadership. He is, in many ways, a meta-leader, someone who transcends the very system that tries to measure him, exerting a form of power that cannot be categorized by titles or charts. He reminds us of an often-forgotten truth, that leadership is not about dominance, visibility, or authority granted by institutions. True leadership is a reflection of character. It is demonstrated in integrity, in competence, in resilience, and in the ability to inspire others simply by living authentically. The Sigma male leads most powerfully when he is not seen as a leader at all, when his influence flows invisibly through ideas, strategies, and examples that shape outcomes without demanding credit. By stepping away from the traditional trappings of leadership, he preserves the very qualities that make him exceptional: his independence, his clarity, his refusal to compromise integrity, and his gift for silent influence. He becomes the unseen architect, the strategist who bends outcomes from shadows, the steady presence that inspires without words. In choosing solitude over spotlight, freedom over fame, and authenticity over applause, the Sigma male resolved the paradox of his leadership. His path may be solitary, but his influence is immeasurable, precisely because it is rooted not in title, but in truth. Do you resonate with the ideas I shared in this video? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're interested in more content about Sigma males, explore the other videos on this channel. Thanks for watching.